Good morning, everyone. So let's jump right into it. Inequality, income inequality. It's worse than you think. Today, we're going to have a discussion with John Grace. He's going to share some insights with our audience and some things that you should consider. My name is Paula Madison Sierra. I am with Power Marketing SF here in San Francisco and the host of 10 at 10, where we share business and marketing information to help business owners keep moving forward. Why would a marketer share operational information? Well, marketing does not work unless it's paired with great operational tactics. And so I want to make sure that my business owners out there are successful. And so I have access to some of the most phenomenal referral partners, and I invite them on to share insights with you. So today, our guest is John Grace. He is one of the founders of Investor Advantage with over 1 billion of assets under management. He's an author. He's a contributing financial writer. He's appeared on many financial shows. And now also the host of Fiscal Fitness, which I was on the other day. Thank you so much, John, for having me on. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being on. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show with me today.
Good to be with you, Paula.
You know, this topic, you sent me an article the other day just to give me some insights, and it was scary. What's going on in this country. So I figure let's jump right into it. What do you think one of the reasons are? What's the reasons for the strife and the social changes that we're going through?
Well, I think we haven't done a good job of keeping our eye on the ball. And by the way, we're part of a team that manages over $1 billion of assets under management. So,
you want to take all the credit for yourself.
We want to believe that things are better than they used to be. And in many ways, they are. But when we look at the financial situation, frankly, I think Forbes put it eloquently. And this was back in 2016. When the title was 90% of Americans were better off financially in the early 70s than they are today. 90%. Let's see, who does that include? Oh, just about everybody. So when we dig a little bit deeper, we find some things that are quite startling. And when some, like I've been on a number of Fox TV shows, for example, with David Hilton as the host and Kellyanne McEnany as a guest, along with Stephen Moore, and they wanted to assert that, household income is the highest it's ever been. So it's happy days are here again. And they go, well, while that's true, you're missing the details. And Stephen wants to say, well, in some countries, that's a very good income. And my counter is, Stephen, are you moving to Venezuela? I mean, Alabama, Florida, California, $65,000, $68,000, family of four. Where are you going for vacation? You're probably not going camping because you have to buy food to leave in the house and then take food with you. So as you come back to the house, there will be food for you. So as we dig a little bit deeper, here's how we see it. The details is, yes, the average is about $68,000 today, according to Pew Research. But when it comes to African-American families today, it's just above $40,000. That's right, $40,000 for two people, one person, four people, six people. That's the average household income for African Americans 2020 in these United States of America. For Hispanics, it's around 50,000. For whites, it's around 70,000. And for Asian Americans, which, by the way, is the fastest growing ethnic group in the country, it's darn close to 100,000. What's the difference? So this is one of the things that this team was actually interested in hearing, because they didn't really want to hear what I had to say at all. And they said, well, what do you account that to, the disparity as far as Asian Americans? I said, well, I haven't studied this, but I imagine we all should have spent more time in math and science classes, because that's what Asian Americans tend to do. And maybe we should learn from them. They kind of like that answer. And I think it's true. And that's part of what I'm saying. I think it's appropriate that we learn from each other as opposed to be in the business of putting each other in the box and then throwing that box under the bus.
Well, I mean, it's so easy, right? It's so we just went through the craziest year ever. Okay. And so with this said, this has been boiling for a while now. BC, before COVID. but how did COVID change that? I mean, I'm sure there's some obvious things there, but how did COVID add to that? It couldn't have been good, I'm sure.
You're correct. It has exacerbated the whole situation. Okay, because while so many of us, particularly my peers in the securities industry, will say that we want to get the economy going again, and so everybody has to get back to work and make life the way it was, which is great if you're in the top 1%, but not so great if you're an essential worker, for example, because
Yeah.
some people have the option of being able to work from home, and others do not. They don't have that capacity whatsoever. And by the way, Paula, that's one of the reasons why I'm not aware of another securities firm in the country other than Investors Advantage that is providing free financial planning services to all essential workers to acknowledge them for what they do every day to keep us safe. And this is what we can do at no charge to help them keep their ability to stop working at some point, but know that the same kind of income you used to have to go get shows up without your having to work. And then the job becomes, this may be for the next 10, 20, 30 years that you make work optional. But the question is, how much money do you need behind door number one so that you can see when you get to 60, 65, 70, whatever your age might be, you don't have to work unless you want to, but the income doesn't drop significantly relative to what you used to have to earn.
I love that you guys are doing that. I mean, that's huge. Before we go at the end, make sure that you tell everyone. Actually, you know something? Why wait? Can you share with how should they approach you for services if they want to do? Well, we know it's going to be virtual, right? And by
Yeah.
the way, also, is it just California, or can people from the other coast be part of this as well?
The whole country, y'all come. All right. One person, two people, a family, we don't care. We'll spend an hour in office if you're local or online in Zoom. We'll do the math together so that you can see all the pieces of the puzzle. And that puzzle is comprised of how much money are you going to need to make work optional? How much income do you need to replace in the event there's a loss of income because of a premature death to a breadwinner, married or not, is immaterial. And then if you have children, how can we all go to the graduation of college without anybody knowing they're wearing that cross of all this debt? So we want to, that our one of our trademarks is, our trademark is, the proof is in the planning. And it all takes some time to do the planning so people can see, like you get ready for vacation, you leave here, you go there, you know what time to get to where you leave from, you know what time you're expected to show up, where you're expected to show up. It's that kind of work that needs to be done with planning folks' financial future.
One
So
thing.
contact at ybpoor.com. YB4, simple as it sounds, WHYBEPOOR, which also serves as our website.
I will drop that into the link as well, folks. So you'll have that there for reference. One of the things, John, that I keep hearing you saying over and over, it's the numbers. So what I'm hearing, it's not necessarily political.
No,
It's really math.
it's really math. And see, let's put it in perspective, Paula, because see, the average household income in the country was $9,870 in 1970. Let's round up to $10,000. Now, in 1970, the composition of the U.S. is about 88% white. All right. And what we see for Black folks, that's the only two categories we see thanks to the Census Bureau back in 1970. So $10,000 in 1970, 88% of the country was white. And for Black folks, the income per household, hold on to your hats here, all of $6,500. Mm-hmm. So let's go fast forward. Remember, today we have 70,000 for Caucasians, 40,000 for Black people. The point is that we were better off back in the 70s as a proportion to buying power than we are today. That's mind-blowing. And to take it a step further, let me put it in this kind of a frame. If average household income was $10,000 in 1970, a Toyota Corolla, I happen to know because I bought a 71 Corolla, $2,176 out the door. So that's roughly what, 21% of the average income. Today, the same Corolla is 20 to 25,000, and the income is about 68,000 on average. So that's what, a 25 to a 30% percentage to buy that new car, where before it was a 20 to 21 percentage. Can you see what's happening here? That's part of the problem. And I think to the extent that we are able to have a foundation that worked for everybody, we would not be dealing with some of the issues that we are confronted with every nanosecond. So to get to the place where we could maintain the same standard of living, the household income on average needs to be more like Asian Americans. And that would be to keep that same percentage of 20% of your income to buy a car. The average household income needs to be $100,000 today instead of $68,000 in 2021.
Well, one of the things that I mean, with all this great information, I'm gonna ask, I mean, solutions. I say let's hop to some solutions. Can you give us maybe three solutions that we should be looking at to start moving forward?
Well, first is recognition, right? You can't deal with a problem or even see the opportunity if we don't recognize where we are. And for my way of thinking, this conversation is a healthy one for you to have with particularly people in your family. Financial conversations, particularly for minorities, is something that we're light on, okay? We should be doing more of that. And I think my final best recommendation to families that have children, let's see, there's what, 7.6 billion people on the planet. And I suspect that if we look to see how many people speak Spanish, how many people speak some form of a Chinese language, and how many people speak English, Paula, I would say if you have a bright child and they want the world to be their oyster, if they were to learn English, Spanish, and Mandarin, now the world is your oyster because you can show up for job opportunities in so many countries around the world. Don't do like me and take French because you thought it sounded sexy and then discover the only way you can speak French is you have to go to Paris or France or to Toronto. That's about it. And don't say, well, our family's Italian, so I should learn Italian. Leave that
Vancouver,
alone.
done.
Look at the numbers. Go after the numbers. Make the world your oyster by learning Spanish, English, and Mandarin. Encourage your kids to do that. And then it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole lot more exciting. And we've got to understand we're all in this together. And the kids from there are competing with the kids from here. So let's compete with the world.
Oh, I love that. One of my minors in college was Spanish. John, ask me if I'm speaking Spanish
I
now.
know.
I did not, because when you're not a native speaker, you have to practice or you
It's
lose
tough.
it.
It's
And of
tough.
course, that's been floating around in my head that I did not take advantage of that.
Right.
Maybe during the pandemic, I got a job offer from Panama because they saw the last name. They're like, oh, you don't speak Spanish. We just thought you did. I'm like, damn it. What a wonderful opportunity.
I love you telling that story because this is somebody who sees you and looks at your name and makes the connection. And that's my whole point. And let's understand when people, I've done this before and people say, well, how many languages do you speak? I said, well, only English. I don't even have ghettoese down. Okay. So I'm stuck with English. But we're not talking about my future. We're talking about your children's future. That's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. And can I tell you just to drop into this because I teach as well. I teach adult learners. I prefer adult learners, but even they ask the questions like where can we find it? And it kind of boggles me. So I always have to keep repeating it. Guys, you have a thing called cell phone with tons of information. You can get on a thing called the Google, YouTube. I'm impressed at how many people share the givers that have shared things on YouTube about anything. There are Harvard professors who share their lectures.
Yeah.
Time schools, you know what I mean? Giving it away for free. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there are a ton of audiobooks by well-known authors for free on YouTube. It's part either if they're new, as part of their promo of how they sell their things, but also older items as well. So you really have no excuse. All you do need is Wi-Fi connection and a cell phone, at least at the minimum. But you could literally learn a language if you want to.
Well, and that's the point. What do you want? And let's understand if we're so busy looking at our freaking phones because we can't stop social media messaging, this is not going to get you to anywhere. Okay, I don't know what the purpose is, but I don't see much purpose. Where, like I say, when you decide to have a vacation, you spend the time to think about where can we afford to go for how long. That is the question. So in terms of the rest of the time we have here on these on this planet, where do you want to be 5, 10, 15, 2 years from now? Okay. How are you going to determine the progress you're making on your scale? So maybe you need to put the phone down and think about that and stop posting on social media, because that's not going to help you. But you make a declaration about, this is where I am. Where do I want to go from here?
And what about a second recommendation? Once they've gotten to that stage where we need to make some changes here in our family, or maybe as a single person or single parent, or even as a kid. I mean, there are a lot of kids out there who are kind of by themselves as well. I need to make a change. Now that I recognize this and I have some idea, what would be my next step?
Well, I'm always going to submit that it makes sense for us to take the time, and maybe this pandemic pause would give us the opportunity to recognize, I haven't put my financial plan in order. I'm throwing darts in the dark and jumping up and down when I see a gain wherever I put some money, thinking that is an attribute to my intelligence, and not feeling so good when I see a loss. But the question is, what do you want this money to do? At what point do you want to make work optional? And a quick example, Paula, we were working with a couple, essential workers, making about 100,000. She's making about 60,000 a year. He's making $40,000 a year. And we looked to see what kind of pension and Social Security benefits they could expect. They targeted 70. They're now in their mid 30s. And what it means is setting aside 15% of their income. $15,000 from 15% of 100,000 is 15,000 divided by 12 is about $1,300 a month. And for many of us, that's a car payment. See how we pay the man first, we don't pay ourselves first. But by virtue of seeing now that they have a target, putting aside $1,300 a month, getting a 6, 7, 8% return expected over the next 30 years or so, now they can see, to the extent that this all comes together like that, they're going to accumulate a total of about $2.6 million. That sounds like a lot of money. Back in today's dollars with the 4% withdrawal rate, that's about the equivalent of the $100,000 adjusted for the small pension and Social Security that they expect. But they see the target, and then we have to review this material at least annually. Right now, we're hearing about inflation should be transitory. Let's suppose you wake up next year and inflation went to the moon. We're back to 13%. Wow, we need to refigure this thing, okay? So don't just set it and forget it. Don't be complacent. It leads to an OS moment, which I submit stands for oh shucks.
You said something that really caught my ear, which is pay you first.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yes, we're so used to saying, I will pay myself after I pay my bills. That's backwards. It's 100% backwards. That's why we want to get people young to recognize, doesn't matter what you earn, it matters that you spend less than what you make. And for many of us, when we have time, that ratio of about 15% in this couple's example is pretty typical. If you've allowed time to elapse, and let's say you're now in your 40s, which seems to be the age at which people kind of wake up going, oh, we better do something. It might need to be north of 20%. But if you don't do the math, how the heck do you know what you're doing? So it is about the math. And by the way, math is probably the only 4-letter word in America that we're afraid to use. It's a word that we should embrace. We should share with our kids, and we should do it even at the table. What's the tip? What's 10% of the total? Have the kids do the math with you, and then we're all learning as opposed to you figure it out. Okay, it's too hard. That you threw in the towel. It can't be too hard. It's not.
Oh man, it's yeah. I think even as business owners, we think in terms of pay the bills first. Instead of looking at maybe taking some profit first. And I've kind of flipped that thinking for myself recently, John.
Oh, good.
What I found is that I now look at my expenses very differently, because now you're looking at, well, this is what I have left to run the business realistically.
Right.
And you're not making over big spends on things that you can't afford. So
Yeah, or even worse, what's happening right now. And by the way, we saw the same pattern for the Great Depression. Debt everywhere. That's a 4-letter word so many people have embraced. And it's good as long as you can make those payments. Miss 1 or 2 of those payments, and now your house of cards has come crashing down. So we saw the same pattern with the Great Depression, a lot of debt. We're right back to where we were. And by the way, I like to say, it seems only in America we're not so good at learning from history, Paula, because we're so damn busy repeating it.
Yeah, yeah, and we're not really teaching it either, so people forget.
Yeah.
You know, I
How
mean,
can we teach what we don't learn?
look at where we are right now. Some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years, politically, financially, in the financial market. I'm like, well, this has happened before. Did anyone read about this? Because this was the exact result, and we're going through it again. And of course, it kills me when people say, "Wow, this is the first time this is happening, and this is so incredible." It's like, well, it hasn't.
Well, to your point, let's just talk about the pandemic. And as far as I can see, we're on track to replicate exactly what we did with the Spanish flu 100 years ago with the number of deaths. Really?
In this modern world that we're in.
And all this technology and all this brains, and we're the brightest on the hill, right?
Yeah. So, John, I'm loving all this information. I feel like we can go for a while, and I feel there are more questions coming, but I'm trying to stop myself because I'm like, we are going to be here for an hour, and this is a 20-30 minute show for our
Right.
guests. I'm going to share for the guests out there that the website ybpoor.com. There's a lot of information over there. John, is there anything else that you want to share? You do that great show, Fiscal Fitness.
Yeah, folks are welcome to tune in on Voice America. It's internet radio, 12 to 1 Pacific time every Wednesday. It's an hour show. And by the way, this Wednesday, the 30th, we're having a friend of mine, PhD economist, Lacey Hunt, as our guest. And Lacey Hunt is a name you've probably never heard of, but he's one of the brightest people I've ever met, and I like working with and hanging around bright people because I'm determined that it's going to rub off on me. Okay, so Lacey Hunt could be Federal Reserve Chair, and we're going to have a Q&A session with him to say, because see, the central banks want you to believe they have all the tricks that are needed in all the bag of tricks that they need in the tricks that they need in their bag to make the economy just hum, not too hot, not too cold. The machines will do all the work, but it's not true. It's not true. So be careful of drinking that Kool-Aid and wearing those rose-colored glasses that discolor everything. So feel free to tune in. And by the way, those shows are recorded, voiceamerica.com, Fiscal Fitness. So we did one yesterday. It's posted today. And then the other thing is feel free to pick up my book, Making Finance Make Sense, either at eBay or at Amazon. And I'll ask for some help here. That was my goal, to complete the book 2020. And then you wake up the next day, you look in the mirror and go, you're not done, John. You have a new goal. Now you have to get on the bestsellers list. So I'm looking for all the help I can get to get on the bestsellers list. And that way I'll hit my 2021 goal. Thank you for your help.
I'm going to wrap up the show by echoing something that John said, because even as a teacher myself, I've heard it. I've heard it with my adult clients saying things like, well, I'm not really great at math. It's become such a mantra in this country that people say without thinking about it. And then 2 seconds later, they effortlessly add and subtract and analyze something, completely going against their nature. Do not believe the crazy that is taught to you. And, I have to say, I heard it a lot when I was in high school. Oh, he's creative. He's not great at math. If you're creative, you're awesome at math, by the way, because that's all you're doing is math. Really analyze what you're doing. You're carpenters, you're designers, you're graphic artists. All we're doing is proportions. And so apply some of the things that you already know how to do, folks, to your finances. You already have the skills there. I'm actively changing as well. COVID really brought to light so many things for my business as well that I needed to change and shuffle around. So don't be scared to do the work. This will also be on replay. It will be on my Facebook page. I'll drop in John's book, the show Voice America, on Voice America. Please check it out. Great information. Track back to one, by the way, because John did mention really taking a look at your kids' future. There was a great one on education and really financing that. So that's that. There's a couple of great episodes for reference for you guys as well. John, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you and have you close us out with a quote today.
Let's see, there's several that come to mind, but referencing what I'm saying to folks, the proof is in the planning, and it's not about the prediction. It's all about the preparation. So
Nice.
let's go get ready for the good, the bad, and the unforeseen.
Nice job. Thank you so much, John. Remember, these videos are meant to educate you. They are not meant to be a replacement for financial work that you could be doing with a great person like John. Remember the offer that he made to essential workers. I'll drop everything down below. And of course, as always, if you business owners out there are ready for marketing, please check me out at powermarketingsf.com. Thank you so much again, guys. I am always amazed at you guys. Thanks for getting our numbers up and keeping them so high and actively sharing. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day. And oh, John, again, thank you so much. See, I'm up leveling too. You're up leveling. If I itch to you, we're up leveling all together. So thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Paula. See you next time.
Take care, everyone. Bye. Have a great rest of the day. And as always, keep moving forward.